Amazing.
We should be live.
All right, we're alive. We're live.
Hello to one of my favorite people in the Kidlit arena. I'm at loss for a word. The Kidlit business, no, the Kidlit community.
Yeah, love it. Community is the
A,
best word.
a giant welcome to Ann Koffsky. It's so great to see you. And
Thank you.
this is our second interview, but our first one was about 4 years ago.
Was that long?
Yeah, even before we teamed up with NBN, there was You've Got Mel.
Mm-hmm.
And you were a victim, a willing victim of the early broadcast,
No,
and
I was an early adopter.
yeah, and that was an adapter, and that has morphed into the Children's Literature Channel, the New Books Network, of which I am the host, and Ann Koffsky, a wonderful, prolific author, illustrator, editor, adapter. Welcome to the show, dear.
Thank you. It is good to be back with the under the new letters. That's
And you have
exciting how it's grown and you've had so many amazing people. I'm really enjoying your interviews.
Well, you're an amazing people. And we'll get to that in a minute. You have, oh, I don't know, about half a dozen books that have come out in the last few months or are coming out in the next few months. Did I get that right? Is it about six?
Seven.
Seven is
It's wonderful.
a
It's
baker's
wonderful.
half dozen.
There you go.
Also, I also want to begin the show. I have to begin the show with something tragic and painful. You've had a horrendous loss, and I know that I have to mention it, Anne, because hundreds and thousands of people are going to be listening, and they're all your supporters, and they all want to share their condolences with you through me
Thank
today.
you. Thank you. It is a terrible loss. It's horrible. My daughter Adira was killed in a car accident about 2 years ago on February 1st, um, 2023. So it's already been 2 years, which is insane because I'm still very sad. And I probably will be sad forever. Um, Her name was Adira Rose, and she was named for my grandmother. And my father's cousin, who was one of the 5 women who blew up crematoria in Auschwitz, Rosa Rabutta. And so it was an awesome name that she loved having, and she loved the stories that go to it, that went with them. And she was a storyteller too. She was a writer like us. She had a notebook full of stories. She did a ton of fan fiction. You can read it on, what do they call that? The young people, they put fan fiction on Archive of Our Own. And we found her notebook afterwards, and in there was a great story about she was working on. It was like she had an outline, and it was just so clear how much of a writer she was because it was like outlined, and she had worked on character profiles, but she hadn't written it yet. And it was going to be about a vampire who worked for Hatzalah and his name was Chaim because she thought
Okay,
it would
what's
be
that?
funny.
Hatzalah. Many of
Hatzalah, the
our
emergency medical services. And it was a vampire, and his name was going to be Chaim because she thought it was ironic that a dead person would be named Chaim. And she had this great detail that the head of the force was Rabbi Akiva because he's still alive, because he was a vampire too. And
I,
among the many losses about not having around is we'll never see what happens to Chaim the vampire. So that's just a way to highlight how much we've lost. We've lost her stories. We've lost a lot of things. And tragically, when she was killed, it was news. It was in the Jerusalem Post and what, because it happened in Israel. And her hesped was in a bunch of places. But now it's old news because there are sadly so many other children who are 18 and 19 and 20 who have given their lives in Israel. And I have way too much company, and would like to acknowledge their losses also, since I'm speaking to you from Israel. So may we all find comfort, and everything should get much better immediately.
let's hope so
Amen.
for everyone.
Yeah.
And am I okay in guessing that this the writing and the illustration and the kidlit is a kind of a balm, a
It's
something that
distracting.
it helps repair us.
It helps repair us. I mean, are you talking about me personally or in general?
I think that maybe, well, I mean, you've had a terrible, terrible grief, but I think it's a kind of a medication for those of us who are in this field.
Well, it's certainly distracting for me. So, like, so the fact that I can work on something that I care about, at least for 5 minutes, it takes me away from focusing on grief. It's always there. Um, Interestingly, most of the books that are coming out now are things that I wrote before she passed away. So I was illustrating some of them after she passed away, but many of them were written before. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see the books that come out, like say a year from now, because that's going to be my post-loss production. Um, but look, the first story I wrote is not a book yet. It's on submission. God knows if it will ever be a book. But the first story that I wrote that was a new idea-ish, it's very hard to be creative when you're sad. Um, Sad takes up a lot of real estate. And I don't know about you when you write, but I write like when I'm bored and my mind goes, and then I find a story somewhere in the boredom and the ether. But when you're grieving and your mind goes, you go to the grief. So it's very hard to be creative. And it was very interesting. October 7th, the Jewish Book Council had a panel with Israeli publishers and authors, and they were all saying, I can't write now. I can't write now because it was so much loss
It's
and anxiety and worry and all those things
it,
interrupts the creativity.
it's very interesting because that's all I can do now.
Mhm.
It's my cocoon.
It's a bomb, like you said.
Yeah, for those in Israel, you're either engulfed in grief and sirens and worry and loved ones and writing for me is my cocoon. It's my go-to.
I
But
have that with,
I
yeah,
can
drawing.
but there's times when I'm too sad to write, of
Yeah.
course. And let's go now to your wonderful productivity. You sent me,
Okay, good transition. Well done.
yeah, as the Jews say, oy vey. So
Yeah.
you sent me four wonderful stories. Ping-Pong Shabbat, which we'll focus on.
Hmm.
Um, I have a lot of things to ask you. And then we have the Three Little Sheep, which is a Jewish fractured fairy tale. So
Hmm.
I like in particular Wolfie, um,
Yeah.
because Wolf, of course, is a common Jewish name. And
Zev.
and your new book, The Peddler and the President, which is getting such a great press, Out with Apples and Honey. And then you have Kayla and Kugel, a continuing series,
Continuing the series. I think I have that somewhere behind me.
and
Here, it's.
I'm not finished. You
Oh,
have
okay.
Fairy Godbubbie's Shabbat
Hmm.
with Intergalactic Afikoman, a new publisher, and wow. Before I'm going to concentrate on the Ping Pong Shabbat, but before we do that, you have also adapted a book by Temple Grandin, The Different Kinds of Minds. And a
Yes.
little bit, I know you didn't write this book, but a little bit about this and what is it being an adapter? I've never interviewed an adapter.
Well, it was very exciting to be adapter because I initially was supposed to be a ghost writer, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have to keep a secret." But then they switched me, and I could be an adapter, and I got a credit, so now I'm allowed to talk about it. So basically, Temple Grandin is a very prestigious advocate for animal rights and also for autism education and support. So, and she's written some wonderful books. She herself is autistic, obviously very high functioning, and she has written many books. And she wrote a adult book that they thought would be, the content would be appropriate for children as well. And I met the editor at Talia Ben-Ami at a Jewish book conference, and I had signed up to meet with her, and I was showing her some of my stories, and oh, blah, blah, nice story, blah blah. And at the end, she's like, "Oh, and if you know any ghostwriters, we're looking for a ghostwriter." And I said, "I'm a ghostwriter." So I said I could do it. And I had done some ghostwriting when I was at Bierman House. And I sent them samples, and then they had me do a beauty contest. They sent me a chapter that Temple had written and asked me to adapt it for children. And they sent that to a couple other authors as well. But I won the beauty contest, and I got to be an adapter. And it was an honor to work with somebody like that. It's just a very cool project. It's different kinds of minds, and it's for fourth graders ish, a little younger, a little older, and it just talks about the different ways of thinking, not just our different ways of thinking, but because there's things that autistic people, because they think differently, are actually better at than what would we call us, normies, non-autistic people. And it just goes through many examples where people with autism have had much success, and even in spaces where people with our kinds of minds would not have been as successful. So it's very interesting. I learned a lot.
As Jewish people, we pray for the temple, and you've actually gone to the temple.
Ah, beautiful. Well
Sorry,
done.
did you speak to her? Did you meet her?
Yeah, I didn't meet her in person. As I was working on the project, I spoke to her on the phone several times to ask her follow-up questions, understand things more deeply. And of course, she sent me written notes back and forth. And she really is autistic, because like when I'm having a conversation with her, I'm like, oh, I start doing the thing that we, social graces, like, oh, it's so nice to talk to you. How are you? What's the weather like? And she's like, uh-huh. Like, I'm like, oh, we don't do that. We're just getting to the tachlis, as you would say, or
The
yeah,
nitty gritty in
the
English.
nitty gritty. Yeah, and so I was like, okay, never mind, forget niceties. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it was, but it was a very big learning experience for me. Just learning all this stuff about
Mhm.
different kinds of minds and different kinds of thinking, and it was great to speak to her
And
and be
and,
associated with her in any way is really cool.
and there's at least one picture book biography out on Temple Grandin. Um,
Mhm.
that's a wonderful story. Now let's talk about Ping Pong Shabbat.
Hmm.
Few words about that very, very interesting book that's out
Yeah.
for about half a year.
So Ping Pong Shabbat.
With I want to say I should say with Little B. I forgot to say.
Well done. Okay, yes, it's with Little B Books. First time I'm working with a general publisher as opposed to a Jewish publisher. So for me, that was very exciting. And it's a story of Estee Ackerman, who lives in my neighborhood, and we go to the same shul. And when she was 11 years old, had a big decision. She's a ping pong champion, and she was at the U.S. Nationals, which is the biggest ping pong tournament in the United States outside the Olympics. And she got to the final round, and they scheduled it for Friday night on Shabbat. And Estee is Orthodox and observes Shabbat, and so she had a big decision to make. And she was 11. And her parents told her, it's your decision, because it's not like it's ping pong. You can play ping pong on Shabbat. But she made a decision that, you know what? Shabbat is Shabbat, and competitive ping pong is competitive ping pong, and she went with Shabbat. But it got picked up by all the newspapers. It was this huge story about a kid choosing faith over a gold medal match. And people were very inspired by it. So I was like, that's a good story.
So you preempted two questions because it sounded like almost like you knew her, and
I'm
you go to
friends
the
with her
same
parents. I
yeah.
mean, she was
So
11 and I was a grown up, so like we weren't friends,
no,
because
okay, but
but I knew her, and the whole community was very proud of her. look at Estee, that's our girl. So I was able to call her on the phone after I talked to her parents and say, hey, Estee, can I write your story? By the time I wrote the story, she was 23,
Yeah.
it was many years later.
Did she have a look at the story? Did she comment?
Sure. Yes, yes. And I involved her as much as I could every step of the way.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was always like, is this correct? Is this accurate? It's great when you're writing, usually when you write a biography, you're writing about people who you cannot call on the phone. So this was really good because I was like, who did you play? What time was it? What did you do next? And also ask her about her feelings. Like, what did it feel like when you were in this situation? What did it feel like when you were in that situation? So she says like when she was 11, and they told her it was Friday night and she was making the decision, she's like, she burst into tears. It was I didn't put that in the book because tears are hard, but it's just like, it was an agonizing decision for her.
Well, when I was a kid, there was a famous baseball player called Sandy Koufax
Of course.
who refused to play on Yom Kippur. And
Mhm.
so,
And that's actually Sandy Koufax is why I knew this would be a great story to tell as a picture book because there's a bunch of Sandy Koufax picture books about that choice. And I'm like, wait, this is the same story, except it's a girl and it's ping pong instead of a man and baseball.
so,
So I
so,
knew it would
so,
have connection.
so, this is one of the things that I thought we might talk about because, mostly you publish books with Jewish themes,
Hmm.
with Jewish publishers, and you've also been an editor at Bierman. And for the benefit of our viewers and listeners who aren't in the Jewish
Niche.
niche, yeah. Um, who are these publishers? Who are the Jewish publishers today?
In America, obviously in Israel, there's a whole other menu of them that you probably know much better than I do. But in America, it's Behrman House Publishers and their imprint Apples and Honey and Press are the oldest Jewish publisher in America, more than 100 years old. They started as an educational publisher, making textbooks for Hebrew schools, and now they are doing a lot of picture books as well. Carben is an imprint of Lerner now. They do probably their most famous thing is the Sammy Spider series, but they do a lot of great picture books for children. Kalaniot is a newer publisher, and just that, people in the same space. Intergalactic Afikoman is a very new one, and they just started 2 years ago. I love their name, Intergalactic Afikoman. It's just a great name. And they're being distributed by Lerner as well. So that means Lerner has two Jewish publishers it's working with. Um, Green Bean is based in London. They do some nice things.
They published your sheep story.
They did. I'm grateful to them for
I
that.
I I have to remind you of that.
I, yes, remind me to talk about myself.
Okay, and of the books that you sent me, two you illustrated and two you didn't.
Mhm.
What's going on?
Sometimes they want it to look different.
Okay,
Sometimes
so
I write things that my style is very appropriate for. I write a very broad range, different ages, different seriousness of topic, different nonfiction and fiction. My drawing style is very cute and adorable and has big eyes and rabbits and, sheep and stuff like that. When you're doing a story about President Truman, you might want a different look because that's nonfiction and he wasn't cute. And so you want a different look. And so Pedro was brought in to illustrate the Peddler and the President. He did a really nice job. Still very fun, but not adorable. So,
so
and
how does
also he
that?
was great with likenesses. Likenesses are so
Mhm,
hard. I mean,
mhm.
really making the characters look like
No,
who they represent.
but how does it feel for you, to look at the drawings
To let
and
go.
yeah, yeah, you said it. It's easy. It's easier. It's easier for me because I can't do a stick figure. But for an illustrator to not illustrate, how does that work for you?
Um, Sometimes, look, for both, I'll admit it, for Ping Pong Shabbat and for the Peddler and Present, which I did not illustrate, I sent my portfolio and asked them to consider me as the illustrator, and they said no. So how does rejection feel? It feels like darn. But after that, hey, I'm an author. That's pretty cool. And they did a great job with it. So I felt like, and I look at Pedro's illustrations for the Peddler Present. I'm like, oh yeah, that I couldn't have done that. He really did. He really took it to a great place. So after you let go and you give your baby to somebody else, they can do a great job. And I have
And
to collaborate.
and the illustrations of Ping-Pong Shabbat.
She also brought so much energy. Pew, pew, pew. Really fun.
Okay, time to mention her name.
Abigail Rajunov, thank you. She is also Jewish, has a great Instagram account, and Ping Pong Shabbat was her first book that she illustrated.
And it's a great name.
Hmm.
Uh, so and this brings me to my next question. You're a girl of paradoxes. Most people would give their eye teeth to have one agent, and you have two. You have Joyce Sweeney
Hmm.
for your writing, and you have another agent for your illustration.
Yes.
What's going on here?
First of all, Joyce is wonderful. I had her first. She's the one who plays Ping Pong Shabbat. She's fantastic. But her focus is literary. Her focus is getting stories placed. And I would like the opportunity to illustrate other people's stories too. I'd be happy to do that, just be the illustrator. So I spoke to Joyce about that and we had a chat and she's like, if you want to get an agent for whenever I don't do words, like if I write and illustrate something both, it's Joyce's.
Ah, okay.
But but for Lisa, if she gets a project for me that I will illustrate, like if I get to illustrate your story, Mel, that would be lovely someday. Then I'll be an illustrator and that would be Lisa.
An honor for me too.
Yeah.
So our love to Joyce.
Yeah.
So Joyce gets the choice.
Joyce gets the choice. Lisa
Oy
gets the
vey.
choice. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. But Joyce, this is very, very new. Lisa and I just made that
Mhm.
arrangement like 2 months ago. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
So tell me a bit about the peddler and the president. How did that happen?
So the Peddler and the President, I was reading a book. This is like 3 or 4 years ago. There's a book that came out by Gary. Uh, oh my God, I'm blanking. I apologize. Gary Ginsberg, I think. It's called First Friends. It's an adult trade book. I got it to read on Shabbat, and I was reading it. And each chapter focuses on a different president, like President Roosevelt, and he was friends with this woman Daisy. I can't remember the last name. President with relationship, the friendship of Roosevelt and Daisy. And then it's a different chapter of a different president and his friendship with another person. And I read the chapter about Harry Truman and his friendship with Eddie Jacobson. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a remarkable story. And I kind of heard it when I was a kid. I think my father had told it to me at some point. But like then I really saw it all fleshed out in this adult book. So that I'm like, let's find out more about this. And I did. I got the Truman book by David McCullough and did research of that. I started looking all over YouTube. There's a YouTube clip of Harry Truman talking about Eddie. There are interviews with Eddie's children at the Truman Library talking about their father and his
And
relationship.
is this something that everybody knows except me?
This story?
Yeah,
No, a lot of people don't know. I'm hopeful that this book will share it.
yeah.
It's an amazing story. It's an amazing piece of both American and Israeli history. And I was also, at that point, I was looking for, I had never written anything about Israel. And at that point, like 3 years ago, it was before October 7th, but Israel was still getting beat up a little bit from various rockets and other things in the press. And I wanted to highlight something positive and beautiful about the American-Israeli relationship because I'm American, so but I really like Israel. So I just wanted to, like, as an American, tell an American story about Israel. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
And a lovely book, and it's kind of ironic. Life is ironic. That this is a book about a general subject that's published by a Jewish press, and Little B published your very Jewish story about Estee Ackerman.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, and so I mean, I should have Joyce on the show and ask her how she sold the Ping-Pong Shabbat to Little B. But
Yeah. I think if you look at Little B's list, they're very interested in doing lots of different stories from lots of different backgrounds. And so Estee, as an Orthodox Jewish protagonist, was somebody from a very different background. I'm sure if they had an Amish ping pong player, they would do that next. So I think they just like doing lots of different stories of diverse backgrounds. And there's a lot of Jewish books from general publishers. There are not that many that have an Orthodox main character.
yeah,
There's a
and
lot yeah.
that brings me to my next subject, which is what I found interesting was that both Ping Pong Shabbat and the Godbubbie, the God
The Fairy Godbubbie.
the Fairy Godbubbie's Shabbat are both about keeping the Shabbat.
They're about the characters choosing to keep Shabbat. Yes, they're not like preachy.
Mhm.
They're not like, you should all go keep Shabbat now.
They're not preachy, but that is the message of the
They're
story.
celebrating Shabbat. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Now,
positive portrayal of Shabbat.
yeah. So now I have to ask you a little, maybe a little. It's not a difficult question, but as somebody who is very Jewish and does not keep Shabbat, um, and I know that if you're a religious Jew, it's like the I was going to say the Alpha Omega because I'm here in Greece, but it's the Aleph Bet.
I didn't know you're calling from
A,
Greece. That's so
yeah,
cool.
from Rhodes. It's the ABC or the Aleph Bet of being a practicing Jew, right? Is to keep the Shabbat. But I gotta wonder together with you. What if Estee? I should have Estee on the show. What if she had chosen to play? I mean, sometimes you don't have to keep Shabbat to be Jewish. How do you see the other side of the coin? People choosing not to be Orthodox, not to go
Mhm.
exactly in the same
Sure.
path as their parents.
100%. Well, first of all, the Fairy Godbubbie Shabbat is really not about Shabbat because I don't have them anywhere in the book talking about make sure to don't turn on the lights or make
Okay.
sure to you can't drive in a car. Like we don't have that conversation. It's really about screens and how we all need to turn them off sometimes. And it's using Shabbat as a lens to talk about screen usage. And not that screens are bad, because I don't say throw the screen, oh, the Fairy Godbubbie comes and destroys the screen. She doesn't do that. She just turns them off for 24 hours, and then they turn them back on, and then they choose to turn them off again, not the Fairy Godbubbie. They're like, hey, that was nice. I'm going to turn them off again. So it's not talking about keeping Shabbat. It's talking about a digital Sabbath, which is becoming a very nice thing that's talked about in a lot of different spaces about people making time to have screen-free spaces. So I just put a Jewish lens on that conversation that's already happening. There was a book called The Anxious Generation that came out last year, the year before, talking about how our screen usage is affecting children. And it ain't good. And it's because it's too much. So that really is that conversation. In terms of what would be, I worked very hard to make the story about this was Estee's choice and is not the right choice for everybody. That was the right choice for her. And and that people should understand and respect the choice if somebody makes it, even if it's not for them.
So it's
So
about taking difficult choices because of your principles.
yeah, it's weighing two things that are important to you. It's not like she was choosing between Shabbat and an ice cream cone. She was choosing between ping pong, which was like her life, something very important to her.
Lucky for religious people, you can have an ice cream cone on Shabbat.
Thank God.
And you can play ping pong. I understand that like her dilemma was the
The
competitive nature of it.
competition, the press, or take pictures. She just, but as 11-year-old to have that
Mhm.
sophisticated
Yeah.
thinking.
The more
Mhm,
power to her, and
mhm.
the more power to you for encapsulating this story so well.
Thank you.
So and now,
I've
now,
heard her, I've heard her speak to kids, and the first thing she says, especially if she's in an Orthodox audience, I've seen her non-Orthodox and an Orthodox. When she gets up in Orthodox, she's like, "So what was the big deal? You can play ping pong on Shabbat. There's nothing wrong with playing ping pong on Shabbat. It's not one of the, 39 things you can't do. It's not like, you know, reaping or sowing." But she's like, "But this was why it was a big deal for me. But you guys should all keep playing ping pong in your basement."
it,
She's not
it,
saying
it,
stop.
it's very interesting. And while I'm interviewing you, I have this thought. Baruch Spinoza.
Hmm.
I don't know if anybody's written picture books about him. Um, so
He was an
I'm gonna
interesting guy.
I'm gonna give you some homework, Anne.
No, it's yours. You thought of it. You got to write
I,
it.
no, I got to tell you, one of the reasons that I'm in awe of you is because whenever I try to write a story that's Jewish themed or that has a strong message, I fall in flames. And you go against we've talked about this a few years ago. You go against the grain. You don't hide your messages. Your messages come out loud and clear. There's a story and there's content and there's an arc, but there's a message when Anne is writing a book, there's a lesson to be learned. And this is what we teach our authors not to do. And look at your success, 50 books and counting. And now one that's crossed over into the general publication. This is a rarity.
Well, it's certainly a rarity that I've had this opportunities. I feel very lucky, and fortunate. It's interesting. I do make sure there are lessons, but I think what I said a couple minutes ago is also the key. I try not to make them preachy. Like
No,
the messages, the
they're not
messages are
preachy.
baked in,
Yeah.
and yeah, you'll see them. Like, but you won't feel like you're being hit on the head with a hammer.
No, but maybe that's your gift. Okay.
Thank
They are the messages are there, but it doesn't detract from the beauty of your story.
Right.
I think maybe that's the point. Um, and
To
maybe
me,
that,
it's like, it's funny. I've been trying to write with, like, I try sometimes, I just tried to write it didn't work. I'm trying to write something not Jewish, and it's not working.
my next question. You
I'm
know,
like, wait,
we,
there's no message. There's
we,
no theme. There's no
we,
underlying
we
meaning. And I'm like, what?
and we should epis be working together.
Amen.
I can't write a Jewish story. You can't write a general one.
I
We
was
should
trying. Maybe I
we
will
should
someday.
Well, I mean, like anything that I've written that's Jewish themed or whatever, I get rejected before it was submitted even. Um, but we
Well,
can
you're
talk.
also writing, are you submitting to American Jewish publishers? Because it's very interesting. The Israeli Sifriyat Pajama, we didn't talk about
Mhm.
PJ Library, but PJ Library is this organization that is very influential because they buy a lot of Jewish books and they send them out to Jewish families. Um, a book that PJ Library will take is very different than a book that Sifriyat Pajama in Israel, which is their Israeli chapter, will take, because the Jewish experience in Israel and America are different.
Yeah.
And that might be, as an Israeli, if you're trying to write for an American Jewish publishing crowd, why you might be having dissonance, because you might be
Okay.
writing something perfect for Israelis.
We. So I will just say that the Israeli arm has been very good to me, and
Mm.
the American arm, they look at me and they say, "What is this crap?" But it's all it's okay. This show is about you, and not about me.
Okay.
Um,
But I'm interested in you too. We should switch the mic at some point.
not Not today. Not
Okay,
today.
fair
When my
enough.
when my book comes out, you can interview me.
Amen. If I ever figure out how to do a podcast, this is very sophisticated stuff.
I will teach you as simple as pie.
Well,
I'm looking for someone to do my podcast, so you have to be careful.
uh,
Um, tell us about what you have cooking that we don't know about.
Oh, a bunch of things. It's exciting. Okay, so coming out in next year, which is I've already completed, but they're being illustrated by other illustrators, is a biography of Mel Brooks called Blazing Humor, which, yeah, I
Wow!
know. Isn't he awesome?
Yeah. I changed my name. My name was Bartholomew, and I changed it to Mel
Oh,
in his
really?
honor. No,
Oh, okay.
it sounds like a good story.
It
I
sounds like a great story.
I love Mel Brooks. Wow, what a great idea!
I
Do we know
know, and
what
it's going to be coming out. He's turning 100 next year, so it's coming out for his 100th birthday.
Kei
Isn't that
Horror?
amazing?
Bis der
He should live and be
120.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's who's
amen. And
who's the publisher?
that's also Intergalactic Afikoman.
Wow.
So very cool. And then I'm also doing a biography with Apples and Honey Press about Emma Lazarus. So that's coming out. And that has a focus on her work with immigrants. So little did I know that would be a hot topic, but it apparently now is a hot topic in America. Um, so those are coming out. And then I'm doing a graphic novel. I'm so excited. I'm writing and illustrating a graphic novel with PJ Publishing,
Wow.
which is the story of Purim as told by Haman. Ah, I'm very excited about it. And that'll be coming in 2027, so we got a lot of time yet, but it's coming and I'm working on it.
Wow, Anne. Wow.
Yeah. So that's
I
been a lot of fun because my Haman is very snarky and it's for 8, 9-year-olds. So it's very like slapsticky. Like when Vashti is in the Megillah is killed. Instead, I'm having her taken away with the cane, like she's being yanked off stage. So I'm having a lot of fun figuring all that out and figuring out how to tell. I mean, the Purim story is like, includes attempted genocide, rape, kidnapping, murder, gallows, and I have to figure out how to make it appropriate for 8-year-olds, but also not lie. So I have to tell the story in a way that
li-
doesn't change the story, but also
and
changes the story.
like the Bible itself.
Yes, most of the Bible is not appropriate for children.
And yet it's a children's book, at least Genesis.
It's a book we share with our children. I don't think it
Mhm.
was written for children.
Um, but we're not going to get into that now. Is there
Mm.
anything that we haven't mentioned? Anything I should ask you? Any tips that you have for aspiring writers, aspiring illustrators that you want to share? Now's the time. Because
I think we can. Mhm.
I just let me qualify that. Um,
Sure.
I often say, but I didn't say this today, and I have to say it. Getting traditionally published is one in 1,000. And having the kind of career that you have had up until now is like one in a million. So there must be something about Anne Koffsky and her writing, her illustration, her thought that has helped.
Well, I'm gonna like circle back to the beginning of our interview where we said community. And my writing is successful, I think, because I have two stellar writing groups. And I share my writing with them and they critique and beat me up and tell me how to make it better and if it's working and if it's not working. And and my biggest tip to anybody who's trying to do this crazy career is to get some friends who will read you and read you honestly. Because the whole point, we sometimes forget it because we write alone in our little houses all by ourselves. But the point is to be read. And if you don't involve readers as part of your creative process, you're going to be talking to yourself a lot. Like I know what I mean, but I have to make sure that what I'm writing is hitting. And the way to do that is with people who are honest with you and you trust and stuff like that. So shout out to my amazing writing group partners. There's two groups. I'm not going to list them all. There will just be a string of names, but they're
Some
really
of them
great.
I've interviewed.
Yes. And I
Um,
just started very recently past 3 months, an artist group of 3 artists. I have an artist chabura of 3 people, with Shari Pear, who's an amazing cartoonist, and Emily Bowen Cohen, who is the author of the graphic novel Two Tribes. She has a Native American and Jewish heritage,
Wow.
which are the 2 tribes, and they're amazing artists. So now they're giving me feedback on my drawing, and I'm looking forward to my drawing getting better.
So I'm going to distinguish this from the other advice that people have given, which is to belong to a critique group. And what I think you're saying is belong to a critique group where your partners will tell you the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just belong to a critique group. It's like being a critique group that you're friends, meaning true friends.
No, no, but and here distinguish
Yeah,
between
yeah, yeah.
friends
And but I'm
who
saying a true friend will really tell you the truth. You know, she'll tell you she have lipstick on your teeth.
there's a
You
there,
know,
there's another story for you here.
okay.
A true friend is somebody who tells the truth. I love it.
Yeah. A true friend will tell you you look fat in that
So
dress.
a true a true it's a truth friend.
Yeah, I like that.
So we both have homework. So it's time to say goodbye to everybody else except us. So we're gonna
That
kick
went
everybody.
fast.
We're gonna it goes fast when you have fun.
Hmm.
We're gonna kick everybody off. We're gonna tell them to run and buy your multitudinous books. But we're celebrating in particular Ping-Pong Shabbat
Hmm.
with the little B, which launched about 5 or 6 months ago.
Hmm.
Um, a wonderful, charming, heartwarming book, and for people who aren't Jewish, it'll give some kind of window to the dilemma that the Jewish people have in a world that has other rules. Let's put it this way. So
Yes.
Ann Koffsky, editor, author, illustrator, and adapter. Uh, and I'm going to already invite you back if the show exists when Mel Brooks comes out,
Oh, that would
because
be fun. We have to have Mel Brooks on the Mel podcast. I mean, that's a necessary requirement.
can you make that happen?
If you'll make it happen, I'll make it happen.
Let's make it happen.
Okay. It's coming out in, I don't know, I have to ask them. It's being illustrated. I'm not sure it has
Okay,
a pub date yet.
okay, well, you let me know. But
2026.
we're allowed to talk about it because you talked about it.
Yes, yes, it's public.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if it weren't, it is now.
Yes. This is the announcement. This is the
Yeah.
book announcement right here.
Right. So we're going to tell everybody to go, and we'll come back and have a little chat. And in the meantime, I'm Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network, and I've been here with the wonderful, amazing Ann Koffsky, celebrating a plethora, is that a word, of her new and wonderful books. Her
Thank you.
wonderful personality, such a generous spirit you are. So bye, everybody. See you next week. And Anne will
I'll see
rejoin
you
in
on the other
30
side.
on the other side.